said, the Mets have had some of the best starting pitching in the past month. Keith, how have the starting pitchers been able to make such a turnaround from earlier in the season when they struggled to even get through 6 innings?
Yeah, it definitely was frustrating in the beginning of the year, but I think you saw from guys like Sean Manaea, you could see in the 4 or 5 innings he would last early in the year. You're going, man, if he could only stretch this out a little further. But you know what? The Mets actually, I think, did this by design. You can see if you look at Manaea's just simply his game logs, follow his whole summer. He's going 5, all of a sudden 6, and now it seems every time out he's giving you 7. And it feels like, maybe the Mets had something here with not only Manaea, but David Peterson and, of course, Luis Severino, building these guys up toward the end of the year. I mean, Severino said it the other day, he would, if you told him in spring training he was going to throw 150 innings, he would have never believed you. But the way the Mets front office training staff handled this, they're able to bottle up what these guys do really well and little by little get more and more out of them as the year goes on. So now that they're in September, I mean, Manaea's as hot as he's been. Severino feels like he's as hot as he's been. David Peterson is as hot as he's been. You'd rather have that in September than anywhere else during the year. So however they did it, it's worked.
Yeah, they've made a complete 180. Joe, who for you, though, has surprised you the most on the Mets pitching staff?
I think it has to be Sean Manaea. He's a guy that throughout his career has always flashed. And at times, Sean Manaea looked like, all right, this is the year he's going to break out. And this is the year that Sean Manaea has broke out. And if you look back over his last 13 starts, he has a 2.61 ERA. Batters are hitting 181 against him, and he has 81 strikeouts and 79 in the third innings. And importantly, the team is at 11-2 in games that he started in that stretch. So, Sean Manaea, a flyer signing of sorts with the 2-year deal with the opt-out, kind of that 1 year, see if he could rebuild his value. And I think it's fair to say Sean Manaea has rebuilt his value, and he's trending in the direction of a nice payday this coming off season. But, we're still on September 5th. We'll worry about that then. Let's just keep that train going for the next month or hopefully 2.
Yeah, and for sure. And as good as the Mets starting pitching has been, they could still get Kodai Senga back, and he's closer to returning than most people expected a few weeks ago. Initially, Senga mentioned he might be available out of the bullpen if the Mets made the playoffs, but now there's a possibility of him starting a game in September. So, Keith, what do you envision Senga's role being if the Mets continue making a run at the postseason?
Yeah, I think Kodai Senga is actually further along, as Andy Martino reported, and most of us found out just a couple of days ago at Citi Field when Senga sat down in the dugout and said that he's feeling good, he's throwing, he's starting to get into a bullpen, and he feels like by the end of the year, I think he wants to make one regular season start at the very end just to feel good about himself and show that he can do it. But we know him. We know what he's about, especially this year with the injury. He was very slow to get on a mound. He needed to feel 100%. And I think that this injury that he sustained in that outing against Atlanta kind of showed him, okay, this is what you can do. You feel good. He shoved that night before he got hurt. Now he gets hurt again, and he's slowly coming back. I think he's going to maybe give the Mets a Kodai Senga at 75 or 80%, which would be nice. You can get him to start. You can have him come out of the bullpen. But if he does start, I do wonder about that because he's a once-a-week guy. And in the playoffs, you might be playing a lot of games in a short amount of time. You might not get Senga for a lot of starts. I wonder how he does with that. And maybe with that in mind, he does become a bullpen piece. But he's such a juicy thought as a starting pitcher, as a surprise for potentially October.
Yeah. Joe, how cautious do you think that the Mets should be with Senga coming off of 2 injuries in all of the season minus 1 start?
I mean, I don't think Kodai Senga is going to come and make that start, and they're going to push him to 110 pitches and see how deep he could go into the game.
Right.
I think the idea of Senga being, in a way, almost like minor league baseball in a way, right, where he can start the game. He could go 3 innings, he could go 4 innings, and then you can piggyback him with, we'll talk about the playoffs in a second if the Mets are to make it there, but you could piggyback with a long reliever of sorts. And to Keith's point about the way Senga with the rest in between starts, I wonder how much he'd be able to pitch out of the bullpen. Like if he throws an inning out of the bullpen, how many days does he need to sit before he could throw another inning? So that's kind of the unpredictable nature of what is going on with Kodai Senga right now. But I think you bring him back, you start him, and it might be one of those things where he's starting more of an abbreviated game rather than a, full regular start like we've seen from Manaea and Peterson and Severino over the last couple of months.
Yeah, Joe, quick follow-up. If the Mets make the wild card and play a best-of-3 playoff series, who would be your rotation then for that series?
Oh, Kodai Senga, piggybacked by David Peterson, Sean Manaea, and Luis Severino. And I'll tell you, if you told me that in spring training, I'd be like, that's okay. But the way those guys are pitching, that's probably one of the best playoff rotations that are going to be in the wild card round if the Mets are to be there.
Yeah. What do you think, Keith?
Yeah, I mean, right now I'd probably lean Manaea in game 1 of any series because I want him to bounce back quickly for game 4 if you do make it past, of course, the three-game wild card series. Severino in game 2, you just love his moxie and you love his experience there. And then, I mean, listen, if you can get Kodai Senga, David Peterson, a piggyback, that would be a minor league, become a major league dream there, Joe, to get both of those guys on the mound in the same game. But I think David Peterson's earned it. Another guy that would be in the mix would be a Jose Quintana. It doesn't seem like Quintana, because of that home run ball that's really snake bit him this year, is the guy you want on the mound in a big playoff game. Home run could really change things. David Peterson would earn that 3 spot for me, and I like that. It's not a 3-headed monster, but if you follow the Mets, it is become a 3-headed monster. If you're looking nationally, these aren't huge names, but they're guys that have been just pitching really well at the end of the year.